Well, I think to the question that you first posed, Vivian, which is, do we have a new appreciation for the work that you guys do? I mean, I certainly can say that I do. As Kimball was saying, I mean, there's a lot of work that goes into it. Putting together, any kind of item. I mean, I think that the approach that we tried to take during the campaign was, ours is the worst. You can't.
Right there.
You can't find it anywhere.
Yeah, you can. As long as you're posting, it shows up there.
We tried to put as much of the daily back and forth on the blog during the campaign. But as Kimball said, I mean, keeping up with, if you've got a story that you're working on, keeping up with doing blog items while you're trying to balance the other responsibilities that you have can be challenging. And so I do have an appreciation for what you guys do. I read you all the time. I read JR. I mean, I talk to a lot of folks, well, not a lot of folks, but I talk to some of you folks periodically. And so, yes, it is labor intensive, and it takes a good bit of time. I think the other point that Anita made, just kind of about the different tone that you might see on the blog, I think Kimball particularly does a good job with that. And I tend to kind of play it more right down the middle. Perhaps that's a weakness on my part, or maybe I'm just not a funny guy. Not really. But yeah, I mean, it's certainly something. I mean, you guys are able to do things that I feel like I'm not able to do, or don't have the talent to do. Which is kind of put some personality into things, do some analysis. That while I try to do some analysis with the blog, I try to keep it as newsy as possible. So that's just my personal approach.
That brings up an interesting question, and I'll get to Brian as soon as
We're thinking the same thing.
Are you thinking about the opinion versus?
Exactly.
You guys, I mean, all of you are journalists who are not opinion writers. You're not on the editorial boards, so. Aren't you walking a fine line trying to do those of us who are doing blogs on a regular basis, we're opinion writers. That's what we do. Our opinion is what is part of it. And is that what you're struggling with, Julian? Really?
Well, I think, and Kimball, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it depends on the role that we're in. I think you do columns from time to time.
I do columns every week, yeah.
I think Kimball is in a different role. I mean, he is kind of, and forgive me for this comparison.
Go for it.
But he is kind of Hampton Roads Shapiro, if you will. Not in terms of personality, but just in terms of having that hybrid role, which Shapiro has. Shapiro, and as I said earlier, I used to work at the Times-Dispatch and work with Shapiro. So Shapiro has that hybrid role where he's both a columnist and a reporter. And so I think Kimball falls into that category. And so I think that he is perhaps, and I'm assuming here, which is always a dangerous thing for journalists to do, he is perhaps in a slightly different category than I perceive myself to be in with respect to how I approach the coverage I provide on the blog.
And I think ours evolved. Mine's different only because of the reality of the landscape. Because if you look at the Daily Press, 18 months ago, and my bosses will hate for me to say this, but 18 months ago, we had a full-time guy in Washington, D.C. who'd been with the paper for 14 years. We had a full-time guy in Richmond who'd been with the paper for 12 years. And we had me in Hampton Roads, which meant we had a lifeline in both of the major places of newsmaking. We had me on the ground down here, chasing whoever was in town, chasing whatever local angle. Now, it's me. So the reality is, it used to be, okay, we're going to pull reporting and do kind of a reporter's notebook every Saturday. Well, now there's only one notebook. So, my role, I try not to, to dabble in opinion. I mean, I guess I get closer to the wall than most reporters do just because of the reality of what I'm asked to do. But, I mean, I don't feel like I'm ever sounding off on someone and kind of, and kind of impugning my impartiality. I mean, I'd like to think that I still manage to thread the needle, and I know that's a constant challenge. But I think most folks that you talk to, anyone that I've covered, I really like to think even the folks that aren't huge fans of mine will tell you that I am you know, straight down the middle, and I am fair, if not, you know, trying to be. So,
But I think there's a fine line, whereas, you know, there's some things that we write as news, and I just want to get the news out because something has happened, and we just want to say it as quickly as possible. But there's a lot of things that we do where we write in a different way that's not necessarily opinion, but it's different than we would write in the paper. I mean,
Right, it's analysis.
yeah, it's analysis, it's, what'd you say?
Dick jokes.
How is analysis done?
There's in the room.
Well, I mean, I can give you a couple examples of the things that I mean, which I don't think are opinion, but they clearly have a little something to them. Okay, I can think of two examples that I did. One was, so I couldn't even compete with these two on the Phil Hamilton thing. So we wrote a few things, but we didn't write that much. During the campaign, when Phil was endorsed by was it the PBA or the whatever police group endorsed him,
Yeah.
I wrote a short little thing. Wasn't opinion, but it was like it was, how is this man that's under federal investigation endorsed by the whoever it was, PBA or whatever it was, FOP maybe. You know, and I wrote at the end, you know, do the police know something we don't know? I don't think that's really opinion. I just thought it was sort of pointing it out. I think there are a lot of things that we do that are pointing it out in a the language is very casual, it's very conversational, but I don't think that's opinion. I have no idea what's going on with Phil Hamilton. I don't have an opinion on whether he's guilty or not.
Your opinion, that was ironic.
Yes, I can do irony
That
though.
was an opinion.
Yeah, but it wasn't an opinion on whether he was guilty or not. I have no
No,
clue.
it was.
But I think
Right.
I think.
Well, I mean, let me just say
Yeah,
one
yeah.
last thing. We make opinions every day. We decide every day what goes in the newspaper. I mean, we do have judgment. We have news judgment.
Ryan loved you for saying that.
Well, it's true. I mean, we're paid to decide. I mean, we're bombarded with a million things a day. Our editors, mostly, decide what goes in the paper. I mean, that's what we do. I mean, did I decide to write a lot about, my other example was going to be about Tim Kaine's travel records? Yes. I guess you could say that I had an opinion about it. I did think he should have released his records. I wrote that story several times, and I put on the blog several times how every single time I found out he was going somewhere that he didn't release, I put it out there. You can interpret, I guess, from that I thought he should have put it out there. I guess that's an opinion, but, you know, I'll leave it to you all to decide whether it's appropriate to have two jobs.